John Miller stared out the viewport of the ship as the massive space station grew larger. His stomach felt tight. After 25 years as a diplomat on Earth, he never thought he would be here. The first human to speak to the Galactic Council. The first human to ask for their help. 5 minutes until docking, Ambassador, said the pilot. John nodded and straightened his simple blue uniform. He was not a tall man. At 58, his hair had turned mostly gray. His face showed lines from years of smiling and frowning during tough talks between nations. But his eyes remained sharp and kind. Those eyes had seen Earth nearly destroy itself in the resource wars. Those eyes had watched as humans rebuilt. And now those eyes looked out at humanity's future among the stars. He touched the small pin on his collar. It showed Earth and its moon, a symbol of his mission. Admiral Susan Wright had given it to him before he left. "Remember why you're going?" She had told him during his final briefing. "We need allies. The scans show at least 3 powerful space nations near our solar system. We need friends, or we might not survive what comes next." Susan had shown him pictures of the 12 alien groups that made up the council. Some looked almost human. Others had tentacles or strange shapes that made John's eyes hurt. The biggest and most powerful were the Vexery. They looked like giant lizards with scales that changed colors like oil on water. "The Vexery run the show," Susan had explained. "They think humans are just smart animals. They'll try to make you angry. They'll try to make you give up." John had only asked one question. "Why me?" Susan's answer was simple. "Because you never break. In 30 years watching you work, I've never seen you lose your cool. Not once." What Susan didn't say was something only 5 people in the whole solar system knew. John had another reason he was perfect for this job. A reason that made him humanity's best hope, despite his average looks. A soft chime broke John's thoughts. "We've docked, sir," said the pilot. "The station's air is safe for you to breathe. They've sent the map to your tablet. The meeting starts in 1 hour." John picked up his small bag with his clothes and papers. "Thank you, Lisa. Wish me luck." "Humanity is counting on you," she said. "No pressure." John almost smiled at that. He walked through the airlock and into the station called Nexus. The hallways were huge. They seemed built for giants. John passed strange aliens who stared at him. Some were twice his size. Others floated instead of walked. He followed the map on his tablet, walking for almost 20 minutes before reaching his room. The space was plain but comfortable. There was a bed, a desk, and what looked like a bathroom. John unpacked quickly, then studied his notes one last time. Earth needed the Council's help. They needed the advanced technology and protection that came with being an ally. After humans had nearly wiped themselves out fighting over the last oil and water, they had finally united. Then they had discovered faster-than-light travel, only to learn they were like a small house built next to 3 mansions owned by powerful strangers. John's job was simple but nearly impossible. Convince beings who saw humans as pets that Earth deserved respect and protection. 40 minutes later, John stood outside the council chamber. 2 Vexery guards towered over him, their scales shifting from green to blue as they examined him. Their tails swished across the floor. "You may enter, human," one said. Its voice sounded like rocks being crushed. "Try not to waste the council's time." John walked into the chamber and almost stopped in awe. The room was a perfect circle with a high ceiling that showed the stars outside. 12 raised platforms formed a ring, with steps leading up to seats designed for different body types. Some had water tanks. Others had strange gases swirling in them. John walked to the center, where a small platform waited for him. As he stepped onto it, lights came on around the room. One by one, the council members entered. The Vexery came first. Ambassador Krell stood nearly 9 feet tall, his scales now a deep purple that seemed to show his importance. His yellow eyes locked onto John, and his wide mouth showed teeth that looked like small daggers. Others followed. A being made of what looked like living metal, a floating crystal shape that glowed from within. Something with too many arms that moved like water. A cloud of gas in a special suit. John recognized them all from his briefing. "The council recognizes the human representative," said Krell. His voice boomed through the chamber. State your name and purpose. John stood straight and spoke clearly. I am Ambassador John Miller of Earth. I bring greetings from humanity and a request to join your alliance for mutual benefit and protection. The chamber filled with sounds. Some were like laughter, others like angry buzzing. Krell's scales turned, a mocking shade of orange. So Earth sends its first diplomat, and this is what we get? A small, soft creature with no claws, no meaningful strength, and barely enough technology to reach us? John kept his face calm. We may be new to the stars, but humanity has much to offer. We learn quickly. We solve problems in unique ways. You destroy, interrupted the metal being. We have studied your broadcasts. Your history is nothing but war, pollution, and cruelty to your own kind. Ambassador Zeth speaks truth, said Krell. Why should we welcome a species that nearly destroyed its only home? That still fights over imaginary lines on its planet? John had prepared for this. We have made mistakes, but we learn from them. The resource wars taught us that we must work together or die. We are united now, reaching out in peace. Peace? Krell's scales flashed red. Or desperation? Our scans show your technology. You could not defend against even our smallest ships. The crystal being floated forward slightly. Perhaps the humans should show us why Earth deserves our attention. What makes humans special, Ambassador Miller? John looked around the room. 12 of the most powerful beings in this part of the galaxy were staring at him with doubt, amusement, or open dislike. Humanity's greatest strength, John said carefully, is our adaptability. We survive, we change, we grow. Krell made a sound like rocks falling. The translator said it was laughter. Spoken like prey that hopes not to be eaten, Krell said. The council requires more than empty words. Tomorrow you will present your case in detail. For now, observe and learn your place in the greater universe. A screen appeared showing Earth from space, small and blue and very far away. One world, said Krell, insignificant. Remember that when you speak tomorrow. John nodded politely as the council members left. Only when he was alone did he allow himself a deep breath. Day 1 had gone as expected. They saw humans as weak. As nothing special, they didn't know what John knew. They hadn't seen what humanity had become after nearly destroying itself. Tomorrow would be different. Tomorrow they would listen or they would learn .ng billions. He thought about how far he had come, and how much farther humanity might go among the stars. The Academy had accepted him as a curiosity, a diplomatic gesture to a new member of the Confederation. Now they were beginning to understand that humans brought something valuable to galactic society, the ingenuity and resilience that came from overcoming limitations rather than being born without them. Alex smiled at his reflection in the glass. His journey was just beginning, but already he had helped change how aliens viewed humanity. Not bad for a farm boy from Montana who had simply fixed a dislocated shoulder. John did not sleep well that night. The bed in his quarters was comfortable enough, but his mind kept racing. He thought about Earth, about the billions of people counting on him, even if most didn't know he existed. He thought about the looks of scorn on the alien faces. And he thought about what might happen if he failed. He woke early, showered in the strange bathroom that adjusted its water temperature perfectly without him touching any controls, and put on his freshly pressed blue uniform. Today he would make Earth's case to the Council. Today he would try to secure humanity's future. A soft chime at his door announced a visitor. John opened it to find a small floating robot. Ambassador Miller, it said in a flat voice, I will escort you to the morning meal, then to the council chamber. John followed the robot through the winding corridors of the station. They passed aliens of all shapes and sizes. Some nodded at him. Most stared or looked away. He was still a novelty here, the first human most had ever seen in person. The dining area was a large room with tables and chairs, designed for many different body types. John was directed to a small table in the corner where food had been placed for him. It looked like eggs and fruit, though not quite the same as Earth versions. As he ate, he noticed Ambassador Krell and 3 other council members at a large table across the room. They glanced his way occasionally, making sounds that his translator couldn't quite catch, but their body language was clear enough. They were laughing at him. John finished his meal calmly. He had faced tough negotiations before. He had sat across from people who hated him, who wanted him to fail. This was no different, just on a larger scale. He reminded himself of what was at stake and followed the robot to the council chamber. The room was already full when he arrived. All 12 council members sat on their platforms, looking down at him. The center platform where John stood felt very small and exposed. The human will now present Earth's petition to join the Galactic Alliance, announced Krell, his scales a formal shade of deep blue. John took a small data device from his pocket and connected it to the console in front of him. A hologram appeared above him, showing Earth and its solar system. Honorable members of the Council, John began. Earth is a world of great diversity, both in its environments and its people. We have overcome many challenges in our history. Yes, interrupted Ambassador Zeth, the metal being. We have reviewed your history, endless wars, environmental destruction, genocide. You nearly destroyed yourselves several times. John nodded. We have made grave mistakes, but we have learned from them. After the resource wars, after you fought over the last scraps of fuel, said another council member, a being with 6 eyes and green skin. How impressive. Krell's scales flickered with amusement. Perhaps the human doesn't understand. We have been watching Earth for decades. We know what you are. A new hologram replaced John's, showing images of Earth's worst moments, wars, pollution, poverty, violence. This is humanity, said Krell, a species that destroys itself in its only home. John remained calm. Those images show our past, not our present or our future. In the 50 years since the resource wars, we have rebuilt. We have united. We have developed clean energy, restored damaged ecosystems, and you think this erases your nature? Asked Zeth. A predator can sleep, but it remains a predator. For the next 2 hours, John tried to present Earth's case. Each time, the Council members interrupted with mockery or criticism. They picked apart human achievements. They questioned human intelligence. They suggested humans were too primitive to understand the complex politics of the galaxy. Through it all, John maintained his composure. He answered calmly. He presented facts. He showed dignity when they showed contempt. Your species is barely 500,000 years old, said a council member made of what looked like living crystal. The youngest among us has existed for 10 million years. Some, like the Vexery, for over 50 million. What could you possibly offer us? Fresh perspectives, John replied. New ideas. Humans look at old problems in different ways. You think like children, Krell said. Simple, naive. The crystal being floated closer. I am curious. If you are so evolved, so improved, why do you come to us? Why seek our protection? John hesitated, then decided honesty was his best option. Our long-range scans detected 3 major powers near our solar system. We know we cannot defend ourselves against advanced civilizations. We seek allies, not just for protection, but for mutual growth and exchange. Krell's laughter filled the chamber. So you admit you are weak and frightened. I admit we are realistic, John said, and willing to contribute what we can in exchange for what we need. And what exactly can you contribute? Asked Zeth. Before John could answer, Krell pressed a button. The hologram changed to show Earth again, but this time the image zoomed, and to show cities, oceans, forests. Such a resource-rich world, Krell said, his voice suddenly serious. Rare metals, abundant water, diverse life forms. Perhaps Earth's value lies not in its people, but in its materials. A cold feeling spread through John's chest. Earth is our home. It is not available for harvesting. Oh? Krell's scales turned a threatening red. And who would stop us? Your primitive weapons, your handful of spaceships? John stood straighter. The Council's own charter forbids the conquest or exploitation of developing worlds. We have read your laws. Laws can be interpreted, said Zeth. Exceptions can be made. Krell pressed another button. The hologram of Earth shimmered, then showed the planet breaking apart, exploding into pieces. This is what happens to irrelevant species who presume too much, Krell said casually. Perhaps your world would be more valuable as a mining outpost. The room fell silent. Even some of the other council members looked uncomfortable. John closed his eyes briefly. He had been warned this might happen, that the Vexery might threaten Earth directly. His orders were to remain diplomatic at all costs, to never show anger, to never reveal humanity's secret. But as he opened his eyes and looked at the shattered image of his homeworld, something shifted inside him. The temperature in the room, carefully maintained at 68 degrees for the comfort of the various species, rose by several degrees. I have listened, John said, his voice quiet but clear. I have endured your insults, your mockery, your threats. Not because I am weak, but because humanity values diplomacy. Small items on the central console styluses, dataships began to vibrate slightly. But there's something you should understand about humans, he continued, his eyes now holding an unnatural glow. We protect our own. Krell leaned forward, his scales shifting to a confused yellow. What is happening to the temperature controls? John didn't answer. He just looked at the hologram of Earth's destruction and felt the heat building inside him. The heat he had controlled for so long. The first small flame appeared at his feet, then another, then more, spreading outward in a perfect circle. The room burst into flames, not wild, random fire, but controlled flames that formed a perfect circle around John. They danced across the floor in beautiful patterns, spinning and twisting but never touching him. The fire rose higher, creating walls that gave off intense heat but burned nothing. The council members jumped back in shock. The Vexery guards rushed forward but stopped when walls of flame blocked their path. Impossible, whispered the crystal being, her voice coming through. John's translator. The fire-shaping ability. It was thought lost with the ancients. John stood calmly in the center of the firestorm. He hadn't planned to reveal this power. Admiral Wright had warned him to use it only as a last resort. But the threat to Earth had pushed him beyond his limits. Humanity has changed, John said, his voice carrying easily over the crackling flames. After we nearly destroyed ourselves in the resource wars, something happened to us. 1% of our population developed special abilities. Some can control electricity, some can move objects with their minds. Some, like me, can control fire. The flames lowered slightly but continued to circle him protectively. We kept these abilities secret even from most of our own people. We learned to control them. We didn't come here to threaten you. We came in peace. John looked directly at Krell. But we will not be threatened. The council chamber had fallen completely silent. For the first time, the alien leaders looked at John not with contempt, but with surprise and reassessment. Some even showed fear. Krell's scales had turned a pale blue, a color John hadn't seen before. This is a trick, the Vexery ambassador said, but his voice lacked conviction. It is no trick, said the crystal being, floating down from her platform. Her name was Vila, John remembered. The oldest council member, representing a species called the Ardani. I have seen this power before, many eons ago. It was a gift of the Forerunners. She approached the edge of the flames, which parted for her without John consciously willing it. That surprised him, but he kept his face calm. The Forerunners, Vila continued, were the species who founded this very council before they evolved beyond our understanding. They had many gifts like this one. She turned to the other members. If humans have developed these abilities naturally, perhaps we have been hasty in our judgment. John allowed the flames to die down slowly until only small fires remained. At his feet, he felt tired. Using his ability always drained him, especially when he used it on this scale. We did not come to impress you with power, John said. We came seeking cooperation. But you should know that while I am the first human you have met, I will not be the last. Ambassador Zeth, the metal being, leaned forward. How many of your kind have these abilities? About 70 million people on Earth have developed some form of ability, John said. Most are still learning to control them. I was chosen as diplomat partly because I have had my ability longer than most and can control it well. And the other humans who will come after you? Asked another council member. What powers do they have? John smiled slightly. That would be for future discussions, as allies. Krell's scales had shifted to a deep purple again, but without the mocking edge from before. The council will recess to discuss this new information, he announced. Ambassador Miller will be escorted to his quarters and treated with full diplomatic courtesy. The last of the flames vanished as two guards, different ones than before, approached John. They kept a respectful distance. This way, Ambassador, one said, without the earlier tone of contempt. As John left the chamber, he heard the council erupting into discussion behind him. He had changed everything with his display. Whether for better or worse remained to be seen. Back in his quarters, John sat heavily on the edge of his bed. His hands shook slightly from the effort of controlling the fire. He had created flames, shaped them, made them burn hot enough to be felt but not hot enough to damage the chamber. It had taken all his concentration. A soft chime at his door interrupted his thoughts. When he opened it, he found Ambassador Vila floating there, her crystalline form glowing with a soft blue light. May I enter, Ambassador Miller? She asked. John stepped aside, surprised. Of course. Vila floated into the center of the room. Up close, he could see that her crystal body contained millions of tiny moving parts, like a galaxy of stars. Your display was quite effective, she said. Though I suspect it was more controlled than it appeared, John smiled slightly. I would never have actually harmed anyone. The flames were hot, but they would only burn if I wished it. And this ability, others of your kind have different gifts? John nodded. As I said, some control electricity, others have enhanced mental abilities. We're still learning ourselves. The abilities began appearing after our last global war, as if the trauma of nearly destroying ourselves triggered an evolutionary response. Vila's lights pulsed in what John had come to recognize as thoughtfulness. The council is deeply divided. Over your display, some see it as a threat, others see potential. And you? John asked. What do you see? I am very old, human. I have seen many species rise and fall. The Forerunners had abilities like yours, and they became the most advanced beings the galaxy has ever known. They did not use their powers for conquest. They used them to protect, to build, to heal. That's what we want to do, John said quietly. We don't want war. We've had enough of that on our own world. Vila moved closer. The Vexery and others fear what they do not understand. They feared the Forerunners too, at first. But in time they came to respect them. Will they come to respect us? John asked. Depends on what you do next, Vila said. You have shown them your power. Now you must show them your wisdom. John thought about this. What would you advise? The council will reconvene tomorrow. Some will want to declare humans a threat and place restrictions on your kind. Others will push for alliance. Her lights flickered. Your response will determine which path is chosen. After Vila left, John contacted his ship. Lisa, I need you to send a message to Admiral Wright. Tell her that I've revealed my ability to the council. The situation has changed, but I believe it can still be salvaged. He looked out the viewport at the stars. Tomorrow would decide the fate of human-alien relations for generations to come. He had shown them fire. Now he needed to show them that humanity was more than just power, that they could be trusted with the gifts they had developed. As he prepared for sleep, John practiced small flame exercises to calm his mind. Tiny fires danced across his fingertips, forming shapes and patterns. Earth needed this alliance too. Work. And after today's display, the aliens needed to see that humans could control their power. Not just unleash it. Tomorrow would be the true test of his diplomatic skills. John woke early the next morning. He had slept better than expected. The release of his power had eased the tension he had been carrying since he arrived at the station. Still, he knew today would be crucial. He had shown the Council that humans were not weak. Now he needed to show them that humans could be trusted. He dressed carefully in his blue uniform and ate the breakfast that was delivered to his room. As he waited for his escort, he practiced small breathing exercises that helped him control his fire ability. Tiny flames appeared and disappeared between his fingers as he focused his mind. The door chimed, and John extinguished the flames instantly. 2 Vexery guards stood outside, their scales now a respectful shade of green. "The Council is ready for you, Ambassador Miller," one said. Bowing slightly, John followed them through the corridors of the station. He noticed that other aliens no longer stared at him with curiosity or contempt. Now they moved aside, watching him with caution and what might even be respect. The council chamber had been repaired. There were no burn marks on the floor, no signs of the fiery display from yesterday. All 12 council members sat in their places, watching John as he walked to the center platform. Krell spoke first, his scales a formal blue. "Ambassador Miller, the council has discussed the events of yesterday at length. Your demonstration was ... expected." John nodded. "I apologize for any alarm I caused. The ability was meant to be revealed under more controlled circumstances. Yet you chose to reveal it when we threatened your world," said Ambassador Zeph, the metal being. "I am a diplomat," John replied, "but I am also human. We protect what we love." Vila, the crystal being, floated slightly forward. "The Council has questions before we make our decision about Earth's petition. I will answer honestly," John said. "These abilities," Krell began, "how long have humans possessed them?" "They first appeared 47 years ago, shortly after the resource wars ended. At first, only a few hundred people showed signs. Over time, the number grew. Today, about 1 in every 100 humans has developed some form of ability." "And your governments? How do they control those with these powers?" asked another council member. John smiled slightly. "We don't control them. We help them learn to control themselves. We have schools, training centers, we teach ethics alongside control. But surely some use these powers for selfish purposes?" "For crime?" Zeth pressed. "Some have tried," John admitted. "But it's hard to rob a bank when another human with abilities is working as a security guard. Most people with abilities want to help, not harm. They've seen where violence and selfishness led our world before." Krell's scales shifted to a thoughtful green. "You mentioned other abilities besides fire control. What types exist?" John had been briefed on how much to reveal. "There are several categories. Some can manipulate elements like I do with fire. Others have enhanced mental abilities, stronger memory, faster thinking. Some can move objects with their minds. A few can sense emotions or influence them slightly." "Dangerous abilities," said a council member with 6 eyes. "Any ability can be dangerous if misused," John replied. "Even intelligence, even strength. What matters is how they're used." Vila's crystal form pulsed with light. "The Forerunners believed that great power brought great responsibility. They used their gifts to build, not destroy. They protected younger species until they could protect themselves." John nodded. "That is our hope as well. Humanity has been given these abilities at a crucial time. We're just beginning to explore beyond our solar system. We're meeting other species for the first time. We want to be builders and protectors, not conquerors." The council members looked at each other, communicating in ways John couldn't understand. Finally, Krell spoke again. "We have reviewed Earth's history. Your kind has been violent, territorial. You have fought wars over resources, over beliefs, over small differences in appearance. Why should we believe these new powers won't make you more dangerous, not less?" It was the question John had been waiting for. "The key question, because we almost destroyed ourselves," he said quietly. "The resource wars killed 2 billion people. They left parts of Earth uninhabitable. Everyone alive today grew up in the shadow of that near extinction. We learned the hardest possible lesson about where violence leads." John paused, then continued. and something else happened after the wars. When people began developing abilities, it changed how we saw each other. Suddenly, the things that used to divide us, skin color, nationality, religion, seemed small compared to the fact that anyone might develop these powers. It united us in a way nothing else could have. A convenient story, said Zeth. But one supported by evidence, Vila countered. Our observers on Earth have reported the same shift in human society. Their wars have ended, their cooperation has increased. Their environmental restoration projects are impressive. John took a small data device from his pocket. With your permission, I would like to show you something that wasn't in my official presentation. Krell nodded, and John connected the device to the console. A new hologram appeared, showing scenes from Earth, children with various abilities working together in schools, adults using powers to help rebuild damaged ecosystems, a woman controlling water to help fight a forest fire, a man using telekinesis to carefully remove rubble after an earthquake. These are my people, John said, using their gifts to heal our world, not harm it. The council chamber was silent as the images played. John could see the aliens watching closely, assessing, judging. When the display ended, Vila spoke. The council will now vote on Earth's petition. Ambassador Miller, please wait outside. John bowed respectfully and left the chamber. In the waiting area, he paced nervously. Everything depended on this vote. If the council rejected Earth's petition, humanity would be alone and vulnerable. If they accepted it, Earth would gain protection, technology, and a place in the galactic community. After what seemed like hours but was probably only 20 minutes, the doors opened. A small floating robot appeared. Ambassador Miller, the council requests your return. John straightened his uniform and walked back into the chamber with his head held high. Whatever the decision, he had done his best for Earth. All 12 council members were standing or floating at their platforms. Even Krell, who usually lounged with casual arrogance, stood tall and formal. Ambassador John Miller of Earth, Krell said, his scales a deep, solemn blue. The council has reached its decision. John held his breath. Earth's petition for alliance has been... Krell paused, his yellow eyes fixed on John, accepted with conditions. Relief flooded through John, so strong that he had to concentrate to prevent small flames from appearing at his fingertips. Thank you, he said simply. What are the conditions? Vila answered. Earth will be granted probationary membership for 20 Earth years. During this time, you will receive limited technology transfers and protection. Your people with abilities will train with council experts to ensure proper control. And representatives from Earth will join council peacekeeping missions to demonstrate your commitment to galactic stability. John nodded. These terms are fair. Earth accepts. Krell's scales shifted to a color John hadn't seen before, a deep, rich purple with gold flecks. Then let it be recorded. Earth is now under the protection of the Galactic Council. Welcome, Ambassador Miller, to a larger universe. For the first time since his arrival, John allowed himself a genuine smile. His mission was accomplished. Humanity had a future among the stars, and it had begun with fire. 3 days later, John stood in the docking bay of the station, watching as his ship was prepared for departure. After the council's vote, he had spent time meeting with representatives from each of the 12 species, learning about their cultures and discussing future cooperation. It had been exhausting but necessary work. The foundation of Earth's relationship with the galactic community was being built, and John wanted it to be strong. Ambassador Miller, a voice called from behind him. John turned to see Ambassador Vila, floating toward him, her crystal form glowing with soft blue light. Ambassador Vila, John said with a respectful bow. I was hoping to see you before I left. I wanted to personally give you this, she said, extending a small crystal device that hovered in the air between them. It contains basic information about the other species in the council, our laws, and our history. It will help your people prepare for deeper integration into our community. John took the device carefully. Thank you. This will be invaluable. There is also information about the Forerunners, Vila added. Your abilities are remarkably similar to theirs. I believe there may be a connection worth exploring. John raised his eyebrows. You think we might be related to them somehow? Vila's lights pulsed thoughtfully. The Forerunners left this galaxy 10 million years ago, but they seeded many worlds with their knowledge. Perhaps Earth was one of them. Or perhaps the trauma of your wars activated something dormant in your species. It is a mystery that will take time to solve. John nodded, tucking the crystal device safely into his pocket. I look forward to working on that mystery together. Your ship will depart in 30 minutes, Vila said. But before you go, the Council has a request. Of course. We would like to establish a permanent embassy on Earth, and we invite Earth to send a larger delegation here. Not just one diplomat, but representatives who can learn from each Council species. John smiled. I was going to propose the same thing. Admiral Wright has already selected 20 candidates for the first delegation. 5 of them have abilities similar to mine. Vila's lights brightened with what John had learned was the Ardani equivalent of a smile. Good, the galaxy is entering a new age, John Miller. The return of abilities like yours may signal great changes ahead. We will need to face them together. As Vila floated away, John turned back to watch the final preparations for his departure. He was surprised to see Ambassador Krell approaching. The massive Vexery moved with surprising grace for his size, his scales now a respectful shade of deep blue. Ambassador Miller, Krell said, stopping a proper distance away. I wish to speak with you before you return to Earth. John maintained a neutral expression. Of course, Ambassador Krell. The Vexery seemed uncomfortable, his tail swishing slightly behind him. The Vexery value strength above all else. It is how we determine who is worthy of respect. I understand, John said, though he wasn't sure where this was going. Your display of power was impressive, Krell continued. But more impressive was your restraint. You could have attacked when provoked. You did not? John nodded. Fire can destroy, but it can also illuminate. I chose to illuminate. A wise choice? Krell's scales shifted to a color John hadn't seen before, a mix of gold and silver that seemed to shimmer in the light. The Vexery will be sending teachers to Earth to help train your fire wielders. I will lead them myself. John couldn't hide his surprise. You? Krell made a sound that John's translator didn't catch, but it seemed like a short laugh. I too possess the fire gift, though few outside the Vexery know this. It is rare among my kind, and it has been many centuries since I had a student worthy of teaching. To demonstrate, Krell extended one clawed hand. A small flame appeared above his palm, but unlike John's orange-red fire, Krell's burned with a blue-green light. I would be honored to learn from you, John said sincerely. Krell extinguished the flame with a quick motion. The honor may be mine. Your kind has developed abilities in decades that took my species millennia to master. There is much we can learn from each other. With a formal bow that John hadn't expected from the once arrogant Vexery, Krell departed. John watched him go, still processing this new development. The diplomatic mission had succeeded beyond anyone's expectations. Lisa, the pilot of John's ship, approached him. We're ready for departure, Ambassador. All systems checked and ready. Thank you, Lisa, John said, following her toward the airlock. I think we have quite a report to deliver when we get home. As they boarded the ship, Lisa glanced at him. So no war with the aliens, then? John smiled. Just the opposite. We've made powerful friends today. The ship detached from the station and began its journey back to Earth. Sitting in his cabin, John composed a message for Admiral Wright. Mission successful. Earth has been accepted into the Galactic Council on probationary status. Technology and protection agreements are being prepared. Recommend immediate preparation for incoming alien delegations and selection of humans to join Council peacekeeping forces. Special note, Council very interested in human abilities. They believe they may be connected to an ancient species called the Forerunners. Will brief you fully upon arrival. Looking forward to coming home. John sent the message, then looked out the viewport at the stars. So much had changed in just a few days. Humanity had taken its first real step into the galactic community. They had faced mockery and threats, but had emerged with respect and alliance, and John had finally been able to use his ability openly without hiding or fear. That felt almost as important as the diplomatic success. For years, he and others like him had concealed their powers, using them in secret, always worried about how the world would react if they knew. Now those abilities would be a bridge between Earth and the stars. As the ship accelerated to faster-than-light speed, John created a small flame in his palm. It danced and flickered with warmth and light. He shaped it into a tiny Earth, then added stars around it. A new map for humanity's future. When Lisa came to check on him later, she found him asleep in his chair, a peaceful expression on his face. The mission that had begun with mockery and nearly ended in flames had instead forged new paths for humanity. Paths that would take them farther than they had ever dreamed possible. In his dreams, John saw Earth surrounded by new allies. He saw humans with various abilities working alongside aliens with their own gifts. He saw his people healing from old wounds and growing into something new and wonderful. He saw fire bringing light to the darkness of space. And it was good.